Imagine discovering that two countries we see on the modern map today were actually connected thousands of years before modern borders were existed. Imagine ancient rituals in India appearing in early Iranian traditions. Imagine a 3,600-year-old treaty discovered in the Middle East mentioning the gods like Indra and Varuna. And imagine a time when scholars, traders and travelers moved between Indian subcontinent and the Iranian plateau for centuries. This is not mythology. This is a fascinating chapter of ancient history that reveals the deep civilizational connection between India and Iran stretching back nearly 5,000 years ago. And what makes this story remarkable is that the historians have undiscovered linguistic evidence and ancient texts, trade routes, and archaeological discoveries that reveal how closely these regions were connected long before the modern world emerged. To understand this connection, we have to travel back thousands of years to cultural world historians call the Indo-Iranian civilization. Researchers studying the ancient languages notice something remarkable. The language of Rigveda in India, Sanskrit, and the language of ancient Iranian scriptures, Avestan, share striking similarities. Many words, rituals, and even the spiritual ideas appear in both traditions. For example, the sacred ritual ring called Soma in the Rigveda appears in ancient Iranian religious texts as Haoma. Linguists studying early Indo-Iranian languages, including the scholars like Michael Witzel, have pointed to those similarities as evidence of a shared cultural heritage that existed thousands of years ago. This suggests that long before the political borders appeared, communities across regions that later became India and Iran shared linguistic and cultural roots. Another fascinating piece of historical evidence comes from a discovery made far away from both India and Iran. Around 14th century BCE, a treaty found in Middle East between the Mitanni kingdom and the Hittite empire listed several gods as witnesses to the agreement. Among the names mentioned were Indra, Varuna, Mitra and Nasadya, deities known from the early Vedic traditions. Historians studying this treaty, which is documented in the sources like Encyclopedia Britannica, believe it reflects the spread of early Indo-Aryan cultural traditions across parts of West Asia thousands of years ago. This discovery highlights how interconnected ancient cultures across India, Iran and neighboring regions were once. Centuries later, the connection between these regions continued in a different form through the literature and scholarship. During the Delhi Sultanate and the later Mughal era, Persian became an important language for the administration, poetry, and intellectual exchange across much of the Indian subcontinent. Cities such as Delhi, Lucknow, and Hyderabad became vibrant centers of Persian literary culture. Scholars and poets produced manuscripts, historical chronicles, and poetry that blended the Persian and Indian cultural traditions. Historians today describe this as a period of Indo-Persian cultural world, where ideas and knowledge traveled between the Persian and Indian regions for centuries. Trade also played a major role in linking these regions. For thousands of years, merchants traveled across Arabian Sea and the Persian Gulf, connecting the ports of Indian subcontinent with the ports along the Iranian coast. Archaeological studies of the Indus Valley civilization suggest that traders from this civilization interacted with the regions across the Iranian plateau and even the parts of Mesopotamia. Artifacts such as seals, pottery, and trade goods discovered across West Asia provide the evidence of these ancient economic networks. But these routes carried more than goods. They also carried ideas, cultural practices, and knowledge, strengthening the connections between these two regions. Over centuries, interactions between these regions shaped the architecture, language, and literature. Persian words entered several languages spoken in Indian subcontinent. Architecture styles influenced by the Persian traditions appear in many historical structures. Poetry, music, storytelling traditions also reflected the exchange of ideas. Historians studying the cultural interactions across Asia often describe this relationship as a part of a broader civilization network that connected South Asia, Central Asia, and the Iranian world. When we look at this long history, we can see that the connection between India and Iran did not begin in the modern times. It developed gradually over thousands of years through the shared linguistic roots, ancient religious traditions, trade networks, and cultural exchange. Few relationships between the regions in the world show such a long and layered history of interaction. Sometimes history reminds us that the world has always been more interconnected than we imagine. Long before modern borders, people, languages, and ideas were already traveling across the continents. And the ancient connection between India and Iran is a fascinating reminder of how deeply human civilizations have influenced each other over the thousands of years. If you enjoy discovering hidden stories from history and civilization, please subscribe.